Welcome, age of vintage society. Diana Dors is one of fame, glamour and intrigue. From the moment she came into the world, her life was full of drama. Her acting career began in the shadow of the Second World War, entering the film world as a vulnerable young teenager and negotiating the difficult British studio system of the 1940s and 50s. Yet she battled against the odds to become one of the most iconic British actors of the 20th century. Her real name was Diana Fluck, but her mother said she should change it because there was always the chance that her name would be up in lights outside a cinema, and one of the letters might fall off. Why was Diana Dors Marilyn Monroe's only possible rival? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. When Marilyn Monroe emerged to become the ultimate Hollywood bombshell, it was inevitable that other actresses in her orbit would suffer. One of those was British sensation Diana Dors, who was frequently compared to the iconic star. However, Dors's rise to fame predated that of her counterpart. For many, she is an icon in her own right. Like Monroe, she was blonde and beautiful, with a flair for publicity and a quick wit, not to mention serious acting talent. Yet she also had a cultural identity all her own. She remarked, "I think that there is only one Marilyn Monroe. There could never be any other. Therefore I don't want to sort of be a carbon copy of Marilyn. I want to be England's Diana Dors." Dors represented that period between the end of the war and the coming of Lady Chatterley in paperback, a time when sexuality was naughty, repressed and fit to burst. She looks utterly artificial but behaves completely naturally. No wonder we fell for her. Once hailed as Britain's answer to Marilyn Monroe, Dors was very much her own creation. Her personality was huge, her appetite for the good life, including champagne, sex, cars, mink and all the showy accoutrements of fame, seemingly infinite. Her first screen role was at 16 in 1946 film The Shop at Sly Corner. Her role models had been of an earlier vintage, Hollywood sirens of the 30s and 40s such as Veronica Lake, Lana Turner and Jean Harlow. But at the height of her career she had more in common with continental bombs Brigitte Bardot, Gina Lollobrigida and Anita Ekberg. She described herself with characteristic candour as the only sex symbol Britain has produced since Lady Godiva. She first came to public notice as a blonde bombshell, as promoted by her first husband Dennis Hamilton, mostly via film comedies and risque modelling. After it transpired that Hamilton had been defrauding her, she continued to play up to her established image, and she made tabloid headlines with the parties reportedly held at her house. For her 21st birthday party, Hamilton invited 80 guests, along with 20 call girls, and it very quickly developed into a mess. In one bedroom there was a circular bed with a two-way mirror above it through which the host and invited guests could view activities below. Diana Dors may be famous for all those flirty, saucy one-liners, but she had a sharp, knowing wit of her own, and was more serious an actor than she gets credit for. She in the early 50s is remembered as an era smeared with boredom, with Billy Cotton on the wireless and rationed gruel for dinner. In such a country, the beauty and easy charm of Diana Dors must have seemed like an insult to many people. Later she showed talent as a performer on TV, in recordings and in cabaret, and gained new public popularity as a regular chat show guest. She also gave well-regarded film performances at different points in her career. But she had one terrible flaw in her character, her taste in men. Frequently cast in films as a good-time girl, she fell for bad guys in real life. At least one of the men ruined her chances in Hollywood and damaged her reputation at home. "It really is terrifying how gullible and naive I was and still am," she confessed. "I fell for hard-luck stories the way boys fall for girls. To make things worse, I surrounded myself with gangsters, conmen and phonies." Born in Swindon, England in 1931, Diana Fluck had her attention grabbed by the big screen from an early age. Her mother, Winifred Maud Mary, was married to Albert Edward Sidney Fluck, a railway clerk. Mary had been having an affair with another man, and when she announced she was pregnant with Diana, she admitted she had no idea if the other man or her husband was the father. Diana was educated at a small private school, Selwood House. She enjoyed the cinema. Towards the end of the war, Dors entered a beauty contest to find a pin-up girl for Soldier magazine. She came in 3rd place. This led to work as a model in art classes, and she began to appear in such local theatre productions as A Weekend in Paris and Death Takes a Holiday. She became the youngest ever student at London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. Diana was 14, though people believed she was older. Mature beyond her years, Dors was flirting with American GIs at Swindon Army Camp when she was 12, though she could have passed for 18. She lodged at the Earl's Court YWCA and supplemented her £2 a week allowance, most of which was spent on her lodgings, by posing for the London Camera Club for £1 guinea, £1 1 shilling in old money, and £1 5 in new, an hour. Signed to the Gordon Harbord Agency, in her first term she won a bronze medal awarded by Peter Ustinov, and in her second won a silver with honours. She supplemented her earnings by posing as a model. Aware of her attributes, she indulged her appetites for sex with a number of lovers, married and unmarried, and often exposed herself to exploitation as a result. Her second husband, Dickie Dawson, used her ruthlessly to further his career as a Jack Benny-style comedian. Among those who enjoyed her abundant charms were Anthony Newley, Rod Steiger, and Bob Monkhouse. From an early age, Diana was enamoured of the movies. By the time she had established herself as an actress of note in the UK, following her best performance in Yield to the Night as a murderess based on the real-life figure of Ruth Ellis, she was ready to take on Hollywood. She went, making the biggest mistake of her life. She took Hamilton, who had inveigled his way, into her bed, her bank account, and her career. Her breakthrough part was in 1949's Diamond City, a period drama set in 19th century South Africa. These demonstrated that she was not just a pretty face and body, but an actress to be reckoned with. In 1956 she was voted the Variety Club's Show Business Personality of the Year, and her new film, Yield to the Night, was chosen for the Royal Command Film Performance. Diana was now Britain's highest paid film star. Sadly, she had already reached the peak of her career, and never became the international star that her success in Britain had seemed to promise. Bad press from incidents involving her husband and a scandalous affair with Rod Steiger did not help her popularity, and her Hollywood films failed to make an impact. When Mike Wallace asked her about starting in the same way that Marilyn Monroe started, "You posed in the Altogether for photographers and as a model, did you not?" her response was rapid. "No, I didn't, Mike," she replied. "I was given a part in a film, and by the time I was 15 I was under contract to the Rank organisation, and then I had made something like 23 pictures by the time I was 17. It was only a matter of time before she had a shot at Hollywood. Publicists were keen to put her in the Monroe bracket, though her talents were underestimated. Nevertheless, if she became typecast as the knowing innocent or the sexual predator, she was unbothered, and her saucy roles were unique in British 50s cinema. It was this shameless flaunting of her sexuality that caused no end of problems with conservative mavens of Britain and the Catholic League of Decency in the US, reaching its apotheosis when she was condemned by the Archbishop of Canterbury. The main reason for her appearances in such minor movies — she was making an average of 4 a year in the 50s — was her husband and agent. He had failed as an actor and was working as a door-to-door salesman when he spotted his golden ticket and wowed her with huge bouquets of flowers. Off camera, he initiated Dors into the world of lavish parties and two-way mirrors. He also stunted her career like an ungodly mix of Colonel Tom Parker and Simon Cowell by guiding her away from serious roles, roaring, "To hell with all that acting rubbish." Light entertainment was where the money was. An actor turned salesman, he was an exploitative and violent man who took control of her business affairs. Hamilton was a con man, a violent, unpredictable and arrogant playboy who had been the protégé of homosexual actor Eric Portman. "It was Dennis's personality that really bowled me over," she once said. Added to that, a dazzling smile charmed everyone, regardless of what they thought about him, his motives or principles. Not that he had any of the latter, as I was to discover. I never fell in love with Dennis, nor loved him in the truest sense of the word. Rather, I was the fly caught in the spider's web. Hamilton was a mean drunk, and took to beating her up on a regular basis. He boasted about her earnings, most of which he stole for his nefarious schemes, thus indirectly getting her in trouble with the UK taxman. "I was married to a virtual stranger," she recalled. "It was so sickening that I began to hate Dennis almost as much as I hated myself for being so stupid." Meanwhile, in 1953, Marilyn Monroe was shooting the film that made her an international phenomenon, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. From that point onwards, Dors, who might have been a star in her own right, was walking in Monroe's shadow. A brief stint in Hollywood later in the decade was mainly memorable for Dennis Hamilton losing his cool and kicking a photographer senseless at a housewarming party. Dors was nicknamed Marilyn Bovril and given a couple of tired, obvious roles before returning home. Following the success of British noir film The Last Page, in which Diana was presented as a fully fledged toxic blonde like Jean Harlow, US producer Robert Lippert offered her a one-picture deal on one condition, that she divorce Hamilton. She refused, and Lippert gave the part to somebody else. When Burt Lancaster offered her a role in His Majesty O'Keefe, Hamilton turned down the part on her behalf. The final straw came when Hamilton arranged a big party to celebrate Diana's arrival in Hollywood, with a guest list that included Zsa Zsa Gabor, Ginger Rogers, Lana Turner, Doris Day, Liberace, John Wayne and Eddie Fisher. It was to be the ding-dong of the year, co-hosted by their friend, the celebrity hairdresser Teasy Weezy Raymond. Dors returned to the UK and resumed her career. She split with Hamilton, though the marriage left her struggling financially. She continued to act and received good reviews, though also developed sidelines in cabaret and much later as a TV agony aunt. Arguably, the comparisons with Marilyn Monroe ended as she grew older, though the pair shared an emotional connection of a kind only experienced by the famous and adored. Dors spent much of her life unlucky in love. By the time she had arrived at husband number 3, Alan Lake, troubled as he was and plagued by alcohol problems, it was evident that she had found some peace in her love life. They had 16 years together, and when she succumbed at 52 to ovarian cancer, Lake could not cope with the loss. After decades of abuse at the hands of men, Diana Dors had finally found someone who loved her more than life itself. She continued her prolific television career into her final decade, increasingly appearing as herself. She had a stint as diet presenter on pioneering TV AM breakfast programme Good Morning Britain, shortly before her death from cancer on the 4th of May 1984. Her third husband, the actor Alan Lake, committed suicide the same year, and rumours abounded that he had taken a secret about her hidden £2 million fortune with him to his grave. In some ways, Dors's talent was underdeveloped. Her real-life lines were funnier and saucier than most she was given by scriptwriters. Diana Dors may never have lived up to her billing as Britain's answer to Marilyn Monroe, but the Swindon-born actress was certainly the darling of the British post-war movie industry, and when she died sadly on 4th of May 1984, aged only 52, she had long since become one of the country's best-known and best-loved actresses. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Diana Dors? She was definitely more than just the British Marilyn Monroe.